why it is important that we pay so much attention to the people skills, why it is like something which is not coming from day-to-day activities. Is it like we are becoming very self-centric, reserved?
50% of India, I believe, is under 25 years old. So the work ethic these days is very, very different.
Like I've seen a lot of industries invest a lot on campus to corporate programs.
But from a soft skills perspective, I think the working in groups and making these diverse groups, assigning a mentor or a coach with them who gives them periodic feedback.
Probably focused on the importance of live lyrics or internship. Waste a lot of time.
So I'm not sure how you guys do meetings, but meeting culture is there in all corporates, right? And then having a very clear agenda.
Namaste. So we keep on hearing the words like future of work, the way technology is evolving, artificial intelligence, machine learning, people skills, and a lot more stuff. But we've really when we try to understand these things in detail, we struggle a lot. And coming from an academia perspective, it is very important for us to understand how we can develop these skills at the institution level in our learners so that they feel more competent while going to the market. So today we have Jaxa Gohil with us. She is almost more than almost 3 decades of experience in this domain. So Jaxa, thank you so much for coming to the campus. It was an amazing session. I am sure you also enjoyed the interaction with the student in the leadership colloquium. Thank you so much, Jaxa. Jaxa, it would be great if you can share your introduction part just to understand the audience. Yeah.
So thank you, Mohit. Okay, but 27 years in corporate world, I would say. I do have a technology background, and then I worked in operations, and then finally in HR as well. And people is what I really, really am curious about, and I think people can do magic, and how do we help them do that magic?
Yeah, that's very important. So when we talk about the people skills, it seems like a very difficult thing to understand for most of the people, because probably the over generation we have seen that probably my grandparents and before them, so the things were like people skill was a very normal stuff for them. They don't even pay attention to that part. But nowadays, why it is important that we pay so much attention to the people skills, why it is like something which is not coming from day-to-day activities. Is it like we are becoming very self-centric, reserved, stuff like that, or like what are the challenges you see? Yeah.
I think, so a couple of things, 50% of India, I believe, is under 25 years old. Yeah. And these guys have not seen socialist India, right? So the work ethic these days is very, very different to what was there in my generation, at least, right? So you worked hard to make a living and live happily ever after, supposedly. These days, there's so many more options. People can do so many more different things. And I think that the attitude towards work has also now changed, right? But in the corporate world, if I was to go back to some of the instances I can share when we bring people from campus and some of the things that maybe they can focus on, I think one is communication, obviously, right? Being confident in how you communicate. Corporates do typically have programs for some of these things as well, but why not do it before? So speaking engagements, talking in a group, because when they're doing group discussions, having a point of view, and sometimes you're not going to say the right thing and being okay with that, which brings me to my second point, risk-taking. You're not always going to be right. And I think somewhere in society we have now made everything like everybody's right with everything now, right? But that's not the real world. And sometimes in the corporate world you're going to get something wrong and you're going to get something right. So you might get some feedback. And what we have found is that these days people don't always want to take feedback. But we were drilled in with feedback. And I think it actually made me better because you learn, you reflect on it, and you can learn that little bit more. So how do you become more open about feedback and see it as a positive that, it's for your development? And then the third thing, and I'll keep talking about this all the time, is curiosity. I think it's something that you have to develop in you. If you don't think you're a curious person, even ask yourself, be curious about that. Why? Why do you think it's okay in this world not to be curious? There's so much happening, really, in the world, on the planet, within your body, there's so much happening. So if you're not curious, then I would challenge everybody to become curious, because learnability is so important. We hear about robots taking over jobs, we hear about AI, we hear about all kinds of stuff, but humans have something very precious, and that's emotions, humanity. So how do we keep ourselves relevant? And if you don't keep yourself relevant, what are you going to do for the next 30, 40 years? And I'm not saying you will have to work in the corporate world, be an entrepreneur, do whatever. But there's going to be something that you want to do for yourself to make a living, and something that you need to do to contribute to make the planet better, right? And for that, curiosity is really, really important.
That's a very interesting point. So, I've seen a lot of industries invest a lot on campus to corporate program. Like, you just hire the fresh talent, but you have to invest a lot in ensuring that their basic hygiene, which we call the people skills, the team skills, and everything. So we need to train a lot. What we can do at a campus level to ensure that that effort of training goes down, and probably even the student, when we keep interaction with the students on the campus, somehow the academic system has evolved in a way that they probably equip them with the technical skills, maybe, if I say, but the soft skills part or the people skill part is somehow they are not comfortable. They're not comfortable going to the market and asking for jobs, because I don't know why. So what are the changes we can bring in the academic system where we ensure that at least students are equipped? Because the way technology is evolving, let's say I've learned a particular language or particular skills, by the time I'm graduating from my campus, they're no more relevant for us. But the skills part, the soft skill part, interpersonal skills and stuff like that will be relevant all the time. So just to understand how we can integrate as an integral part of the curriculum, and we ensure that students are equipped with all these things.
I think actually, even from a technology perspective, my experience is that we also train people on technology when they join the company, because they don't necessarily come ready to work on projects. Okay. So even within the curriculum, if you can get connected with corporates, so people start doing some kind of mentorship, etc., with different corporates, I'm not sure, something like that could start happening even sooner. So the internship is later, but even before that, maybe corporates coming over here, doing some live projects, doing some experimentation with the students, etc., is a possibility. Okay. But from a soft skills perspective, I think the working in groups and making these diverse groups, because typically everybody will work with their friends. Yeah. So in the last campus program that we led, but that I have been part of, so we used to just create groups randomly, and if we had people coming from 4 different campuses, we always mixed everybody up. Okay. Because otherwise people will stick to the people that they know from their campus, and then you're not learning anything new. Yeah. So mix them all up, and even within Rishihood, you can easily mix people, whether it's from a gender perspective, or whether it's from language, or whether it's from different regions of India, or whatever it may be. Yeah. But mix people up so they don't always stick to each other, because in the corporate you're going to work with lots and lots of different people, teams, etc. And then give them challenging tasks, assigning a mentor or a coach with them who gives them periodic feedback. Okay. I think the feedback is really, really important, because I think these days people seem a little bit resistant to feedback. So if they start getting feedback when they're studying, it makes that step into the corporate that little bit easier as well, because they are going to get feedback over there at some point. And then give them some stretch assignments. I think corporates are looking for people who have done different things. So that it's not just about the curriculum of their particular course, but they've taken a stretch assignment for X, Y, Z. So how, as a institution, can you also provide those kind of opportunities, possibly? And it doesn't have to be related to their degree. It could be something related to sustainability, as an example, or something. But how do you give them a little bit of a broader picture? Maybe you do that, but I would say some of these things.
So just to summarize, you probably focused on the importance of live projects or internship at a very early stage, so that students are aware what is happening in the industry front, so that they can prepare or equip themselves accordingly. Another part, you said that it is important for students to work in team, so that they understand the basic human
and make feedback part of that.
Make feedback as an important part of it, and giving them something which is not relevant to their academic journey. So like community engagement is something we do, where it is mandatory for student to go and work in the community, serve in the community for a month or so. So that is important. Yeah, well taken. But along with that, I would also like to understand, even like with almost a decade of experience, I've seen that when your session was classroom to boardroom. So even when we got into the conversation of boardroom and we tried to discuss on some of the serious stuff, I've seen that eventually the conversation ended into a very comedy wala part. Like, it's very difficult to come on to solve small things. Probably, if we enter into a one-on-one conversation, we can solve that thing within 5 minutes. But when we sit in a group of, let's say, 5 to 10 people, it usually end up into an hour conversation, but still we are unable to come the relevant points. So I guess that's the reason meetings waste a lot of time. So I feel there is also a gap at corporate level to understand how we can communicate effectively. So is it so, or like?
So I'm not sure how you guys do meetings, but meeting culture is there in all corporates, right? And then having a very clear agenda. Is that something that you guys do? So if it's typically more than half an hour meeting, if there's going to be so, how many people should, maximum number of people you should have, and then how long should a meeting be? So 30 minutes to make these two decisions. And don't cover too many things. Make the meeting relevant and make sure you have the right audience in that meeting. And so meetings are always going to be there.
I just want to understand, do you feel that effective meeting is also an art? Like it is important for us to conclude everything within 30 minutes. So how we can train ourselves to be effective in that?
I'm not saying all meetings are going to be half an hour. Sometimes we have longer meetings. But I think the audience that you have, being prepared, the pre-work that you do, so meetings are super important. And there will be lots and lots of meetings. And if you're in a meeting, once I had been given this feedback many years ago, if you're in a meeting, that means you should have one question, one point of view, or one comment. Don't just sit there, right? But sometimes I see people making too many comments in the meeting as well. So how do you know when to speak? But is it better to say something versus say nothing? So that's something that you will learn over time. But if you're in a meeting, then you should find that you're adding some value or it's adding value to you. So how do you become mindful of that? So for sure, you need to be able to speak up in meetings. I think an agenda is really, really important. If you're setting up a meeting with somebody, then don't just set up a meeting. Put the agenda. These are the 2 things I want to talk about, or these are the 5 points we're going to cover, and then having a time check on it, so the meeting doesn't go on for 1 or 2 hours. Making sure that you've given enough time, etc., and then following up with minutes. That's a practice people follow a lot. Meeting minutes, so everybody knows what got discussed.
From this, I can recall a conversation by Steve Jobs. He said, technology is nothing. It is important for us to empower the employees or the team with the right opportunities or skills required to excel them in their career. And when we give them that freedom, probably people do phenomenal jobs. So how we ensure that in organization level we train our team member accordingly, that they are able to take up the leadership position. So firstly, I would like to understand how you define leadership, and second thing is how we can inculcate that as a part of our day-to-day activities, so that we are ensuring that our team members are becoming leaders in their work part.
You see, now, after all these years, I think leadership is a bit of an overloaded word, really, right? At the end of the day, leadership is about working with people, developing people, making people do amazing things, right? And I think for me, leadership more and more, it's about empathy. So the more you understand situations, put yourself in that situation, and how would you address that situation, right? So that's one big part of leadership. It's about I don't like the word soft skills. It's about the people skills.
People skills,
right? I think that's so important. It's not the tasks will get done, but if you have a genuine empathy towards people and the people skills, it'll make you that much more effective. So for me, leadership is now getting a little bit blurred, a little bit. But I think so. One of my statements I like to make is insecure people will never make good leaders. So something that you talked about, empowering. How does somebody who's insecure empower anybody? They won't. So then you become micromanagers, and then ultimately you frustrate your team and people will leave. So I think it's a lot of you knowing who you are as a person, trusting yourself. The more you trust yourself and why you're here, the more you will trust your team and allow them to come up with ideas. Even if they fail, are you going to go there and shout at them saying, why did you do this and you got it wrong? Or are you going to coach them through, okay, how could you have done it differently? Maybe this is what you can do next time. I'm not saying it's always going to be so easy, but there is a difference in how you approach conversations versus the dunda kind of thing.
So if I have to summarize it, you say that being empathetic and introspection is, these 2 things are very, very important in order to ensure to be a good individual. That's excellent, Along with that, I like, if you keep on mentioning people skills, you're good with people and stuff like that, and you have trained, you actually, this is something which you are passionate about. If you have to understand top 5 skills in terms of people skills, which the learners should be aware in their academic journey, so that they can prepare themselves by the time they enter into the corporate world. Any 5 skills you feel that you rate as people skills and are non-negotiables, like you cannot miss that.
So for me in people skills and in the training that I do as well, trust, I talk about trust a lot.
Trust,
I think it fundamentally, because when you're working in the corporate world, you're going to be working in a team. And a team only works well when you have a good level of trust, right? How do you trust people? So first, I'll go back to you have to know how you're going to trust yourself. And there's a trust model as well. You know, if somebody's if they take accountability, they're responsible. So there's various things you can look at. But I think if you can get a good level of trust when it comes to people skills, empathy, like I mentioned earlier, if you can, so you understand people, you're curious, you want to learn about them. Listening becomes really important.
Okay.
Right? Too many times people want to talk about all the things that they know, but sometimes just listen to what somebody else is saying. Are you truly listening? You know, and silent moments are okay.
Yeah.
So these are some of the people skills you have to develop as a leader to be able to work with people better.
Okay.
And I'll come back to the final thing, the feedback. Take it as a gift, right? If somebody gives you a feedback, you don't have to work on everything. But if somebody's giving you feedback, at least reflect on it. Is this something I could have done differently? What could I do next time? So these are, I think if you get some of these things sorted, I think you're on a good journey to start working on your people skills, actually.
That's interesting. So last question from my end. Do you want to share some tips and tricks to the student who, like we have learners participating in the final placement processes. So any tips and tricks for them to excel in their interview part?
I've done so many campus events and so many interviews. Okay, so I think smiling, number one.
Okay.
All right, so when you go there with energy and be happy that you're there and smile. It really does stand out, all right? When you see somebody smiling and happy to be there, I think your whole attitude changes. So number one, smile. Number two, be ready to ask questions to whichever institution whichever corporate you're going to.
Okay.
Ask them some questions as well, whether it's about their campus program, whether it's about their diversity program, how are they going to be trained, whatever it may be. But do some homework on the organization as well. If you're applying to a company, how are they doing? What do you think about them? So I think if you've shown some homework and then you have some curiosity, that's always great. I think within your profile and whilst you're studying, how do you get yourself into some extracurricular activities and show some of your personal passion projects, etc. as well. So I think these would be my 3 things.
Great. Thank you so much, Jaxa, for sharing the insights. That's all on the people skills from our end. Thank you, Jaxa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.